Hello and welcome to Everyone's a Critic. Joining me today is Jordan Schmidt, who
Hello?
has been the host of several podcasts. Jordan,
Yeah.
if you I don't know if I can name them all. Can you?
Well, I did that. I'm still doing That's Not Quite All, Folks, which I've been doing for 5 years. I did Veracon, which has been on an indefinite hiatus because the guy I do it with is in academia. And, when you're a college professor, it's hard to really find time to record. And then there's another one that hasn't started yet that I don't know if I can divulge anything about. And then there's the yearlies, which is both video and a podcast. And so I have a lot of hats. And then on the side, I'm a video essayist and also have known you for 10 years. So,
Yeah,
duly qualified.
yeah. And I asked him to come on today. You said you've known me for 10 years, but that's pretty much the span of time that we've been covering movies on this podcast, even though it's only 4 episodes long, because the first three movies we've covered have been no more than about 10 years old. Like the oldest
Right.
was 9 years old. Then last time we covered a movie that was 8 years old. The
More like
first time
three
we
weeks
covered a
old,
movie
right?
that just came out last year.
Yeah.
So now I was thinking we should cover movies from all spans of generations, like
Yeah.
VHS era. That's what you use to just cover the oldie time movies,
Yeah.
which
Absolutely.
unfortunately is now up to the 2000s. Where does time go? But today I've decided we're covering, I should say, a
Yes.
movie.
Unless I'm not really here. I don't
Yes,
know. This could be a fugue state I'm in right now. Uh,
yeah. A movie that is almost, if you can believe it,
no, don't say it.
30 years old. A
Because that means
movie,
I'm almost 30 years old, and that's a horrifying fact as
yes,
well.
because Jordan was actually born the year this movie came out.
I was born the
I,
year before it came out. This is like
oh,
this is like mid 96. I was the tail end of 95, but it's in the same wavelength.
yeah, I was a toddler. So,
Okay.
but obviously, I I saw this movie as a teenager, and even back when I was in its target audience, I couldn't stand it. But Jordan loves it. I
Yeah.
so if you don't know what movie we're talking about, well, you should, because if you don't, that means you're not
Should be up
reading the
below
title.
us right now. It should be on the
Yeah,
little yeah.
yeah, of what you're viewing. And if you don't do that, how do you even pick videos to watch? Do you just watch this on like a random auto-generated
Just
playlist
a
or
big
something?
wheel of like recommended YouTube videos, and you just like that one. Oh, so we won there.
Yes, but to change, uh, I'll just say in the way they said it back in ye olden times and how they talk in this movie. If thou art wondering what movie thou shalt be discussing, look no further, because we are Dost talking about Romeo plus Juliet. Ah, 'tis a movie that ruffles a many, but is beloved by many more. But why dost I, some canst not stand this movie, whilst Jordan here loves it, like a Romeo loves a Juliet. I shall this be a case of a Capulet and a Montague on a podcast, or shall it be that we can all agree not to get banished over the opinion of a movie That is Dost older than its Lee's girlfriends.
Oh, you knew it was coming. You knew the joke was coming.
Yeah, we can stop talking in Shakespearean
If I
language
would have
there.
known if I would have known we had to do this in iambic pentameter, I would have been like freaking out the whole time. Like I've done Shakespeare, but I wasn't on that. Like, you know.
Yeah, but yes, we are talking about Romeo plus Juliet, and
Juliet. Yes.
and yeah, I don't know. The
It's a
thing is,
lot.
I don't mind Baz Luhrmann's style as a filmmaker. I
Okay.
actually like Moulin Rouge and Strictly Ballroom.
Oh, that's a great
Um,
one. So,
yeah,
yeah.
Great Gatsby and Elvis are okay. Uh,
I like Elvis more than a lot of people. I think I get the sort of blown up spectacle he's going to like Tom Hanks playing a cartoon villain. I get what he's trying to do there. Gatsby not as much, but I can stick with Baz Luhrmann when he takes big swings. And arguably, I think Romeo and Juliet might be his biggest swing because he's doing away with a lot of the conventions you would expect in a Shakespeare adaptation, and he's just blowing it up to 5,000 and making it really stand as it is, or at least as it was in 96.
yeah, and I, like most of the world, have not seen Australia. Jordan, are you one of the five people in the world who's seen Australia?
I know he made like a Hulu miniseries cut a couple of years ago, and even then I'm like, well, even then that's too much content for me. One of these days, if I need to be a real Buzz completist, I will knock off Australia. But yeah, it didn't exactly speak to me.
Yeah, I think the only person I know who's seen Australia is my dad.
Hmm.
But
I thought you were going to say is Baz Luhrmann.
well, my dad and Baz Luhrmann.
You've never seen them in the same room.
Yeah, I don't think so. Actually, my dad did not like Moulin Rouge, so yeah,
Oh,
I
okay.
don't think
I mean,
they're the
it's an
same
acquired
people.
taste. Baz in general is so.
Yeah. Yeah, I think maybe that's why most people have not seen Australia because it was marketed as Baz Luhrmann is making a normal movie.
Normal by his standards, yes.
Yeah. And people were like, okay, but we don't want you to make, but his fans were like, we don't want you to make a normal movie.
Yeah, do something
And
crazy.
everyone else didn't care.
Yeah.
It was like, I think it came out in November of
It
2008
was,
and just
yeah.
kind of got
And
drowned out by a bunch of other.
Hugh Jackman at the Oscars remarked that, Australians playing Americans is good, but two Australian actors playing Australians in a film called Australia, that drives people away.
Yeah, and I think that's also maybe the problem. Like it's kind of hard to even search for the movie on Google.
Yeah, not exactly SEO trained, Boz
Y-
was.
Yeah. So like again, like it was like the sort of problem that animated movie from 10 to 12 years ago, Epic had. It's like
Oh, yeah.
you're like, how are people supposed to search the movie? And how are they gonna see it if it's a title you can't search?
Yeah, that was before people really picked up what SEO was and were like, okay, maybe we want to take a title that sort of stands out, and that kind of doomed them. That was Chris Wedge, right? Epic.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
again, Australia
deserve
was
better.
Baz Luhrmann,
Yeah,
and again, like wasn't SEO friendly, so it doomed Baz
right.
Luhrmann.
That's how we got here. Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, but actually, that's something else that's strange about, what we're actually supposed to be talking about, which is Baz Luhrmann's
Romeo and
Romeo
Juliet.
plus Juliet, which is that I guess they knew what SEO was back in 1996 because they had to put it as Romeo plus Juliet.
Plus,
So you
yeah,
don't confuse it with the other thousands of Romeo and Juliet adaptations in the world.
exactly. And this is a rare adaptation of it that specifies before the title that it is William Shakespeare's Romeo and plus Juliet, as opposed to I don't know, Enid Blyton's Romeo and Juliet. I don't know.
Yeah.
Like,
But I think a more accurate title would be MTV's
Yeah,
Romeo plus Juliet
I
because
see what you mean there.
it is I think that's one of my problems with the movie is it
Hmm,
sometimes feels like it's trying way, way, way too hard to be cool and edgy
hmm,
and hip.
okay.
And in a way
Well,
that just kind of comes off more as obnoxious than anything. I mean, at one point, Mercutio literally says Romeo like that.
well, I think the joke there is he's trying to be cool and he's trying to blend in because that's the whole thing. I mean, I have a lot sorry, I have a lot of things to say about Mercutio as a character in this that I think we're probably eventually going to get to. But in terms of the coolness, in terms of making this the cool with the times 1996 that it is, I actually would go on to say that when I think of 1996 movie making, and not just how they said it and how they um, make the world look like the way it is, but also just the filmmaking tactics. I think of movies like this. This, while trying to be cool and trying to be with the times, I think sum up the stylization and a lot of the mindsets of what was going on with, young people in 96. And I think the soundtrack also ties into that because you have the soundtrack is say what you will about it being like weird needle drops. I mean, Boz does that his whole career, but the soundtrack has aged very well. There's a lot of songs on here like Love Fool by the Cardigans and Talk Show Host by Radiohead. And they've aged very well. It's very eclectic and it gets what this is supposed to be, angsty youth wanting to break out. And I think that fits this film really well.
Yeah, I actually do like the soundtrack. That's not necessarily what I mean for the most part. I think most of the musical score is good. I think the scene where he fights Tybalt,
Yeah.
that's a I I don't know, something about the musical score felt a little off there. Like it felt a
Okay.
little made for TV-ish to me. Some of the directorial choices
Okay.
and some of the adaptation choices came off a little too trying too hard to be cool and hip, like readapting two of Romeo and Benvolio's friends as basically Beavis and Butthead if they spoke iambic pentameter.
I do bite my thumb, sir! Do you bite your thumb and us? Sir. Is love our side if I say I? No! No, sir, I do not bite my thumb at you, sir, but I bite my thumb, sir! Do you quarrel, sir?
Kind of. Yeah, no, I see what you mean there. And one of the big swings this takes as an adaptation is like I forget what it this is me being a bad Shakespeare fan. I forget what it was in the original, but what they end up taking in this movie as LSD essentially. Like taking like what was a drug or what was something in the original and making it into like something addictive. I think that is a swing that does not work for everybody because it ties into the very like more realistic and edgy sort of 1996. These are kids that are trying to rebel kind of thing. And
Yeah.
I think for the most part it does work, but your mileage may vary.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, like stuff like that I was okay with. But I don't know, it's like also just some of the editing choices I felt were a little like
Yeah.
I'm
Well, that's
sure
Buzz.
Boz had an idea of what he was thinking in his head I'm not quite sure it comes off on screen. Like in the scene where they're at the beach and not the
Mm.
first scene where Benvolio and Romeo are at the beach, but when Mercutio, Benvolio, and their friends are at the beach and we see a bunch of exterior shots, like it like at for like a minute it's green, for a minute it's purple, and I'm like, why is it suddenly green? Why is it suddenly purple? Like it
Well, he was
does.
trying to do some symbolism.
What was the symbolism though?
I'm not sure. I just know he was trying to do some sort of symbolic like thing, and I mean maybe it works for some other. There are moments to your point where I think his what he's trying to do, his intent evades the grasp not only of what the film can do, but also what the audience can pick up, and that's just a Boz problem in general.
Yeah, and also I get there's a lot of like sort of in my opinion, like unnecessary, like slow-mo,
Yeah.
and close-up shots kind of took away from the power of the scene rather than added to it.
Okay.
And like
I
shaky
think it makes the movie
cam.
what it is for me, but again,
Yeah. And also, I don't know, sometimes I feel like there's, well, as we all know, as I'm sure even Boz would admit, he's more of a style guy than a substance guy.
100%.
Yeah. And there are times where it feels like I'm not entirely sure he really understands the entire story or everything that's going on in the plot. Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of it kind of rubs off like this is more of a nitpick than maybe a legit criticism, but at the beginning, the two Beavis and Butthead friends who shout all the time say,
A dog of the House of Capulet moves me!
now if you read the book, or the play, I mean,
Play.
those two guys were originally Capulets, not
Yeah.
Montagues. So they're literally praising the Capulets, their sworn enemies, when they say that.
There's little things like the thing that other people will bring up about this movie that is sort of meddling with the forces of Shakespearean good and evil is that because they can't change any of the text whenever they say like now draw your sword or your long sword, it's guns. All the guns are named swords, and it's clever. Some people can say it's clever. I actually think at times it's inspired, but I can accept that it is kind of silly to say this is my gun. I call it a sword. You know.
Yeah, it's like, do people actually like I think what he was trying to do is like a sword was the brand name of the gun,
Yeah.
but
The
do
brand name
people
sword.
who are like gun nuts, who like own guns, do they call their guns by their brand name? Like, is it like with shoes, like with Nike?
I mean, in movies they tend to. I mean, obviously the James Bond movies, this is a Walther PPK, and you've had your six, you know. But like, I don't know if they're really calling it by the brand name rather than just, well, this is a six shooter, or this is a what do you what I don't know enough about guns to really, make this metaphor work, but I think that like they're not exactly saying, well, this is a insert brand name of a gun brand.
Yeah, me neither, but it does kind of lead to a larger point, which is that, um, in many of Shakespeare's plays, Romeo and Juliet is arguably the one that has pl a lot of plot points that just don't really work as well in the
Yeah,
90s as they do in the 1500s. So you gotta take a big leap of logic that these people who are living in the 90s are acting like people in the 1500s. Like, look, the unfortunately in the 90s, people said they were against sexualizing minors or said they were against being attracted to minors, but it was still kind of commonplace and people looked the other way. But I mean, hell, in the same year that Romeo plus Juliet came out, we had beautiful girls.
yeah,
And as Alex and I talked about on the episode of Out of Sight, because I was talking about how it felt like Christina Ricci's career, she just went from playing 12-year-olds to 18-year-olds in like the blink of an eye.
yeah. That it,
Um,
Hollywood's kind of crazy like that because
yeah, yeah, it was like it was partly due to that sort of unfortunate fetishization, yeah, fetishization of, you know, young girls back in the 90s. But even with that being said, like, no one's giving any side eyes or uncomfortable glances that Paul Rudd is trying to marry a 14-year-old girl.
Yeah, that I think, and I will say, I will give this film credit. They did not like, Claire Danes is of age, Leo DiCaprio is of age. Advantage this has over the Zeffirelli version, which obviously, like, they casted like 16, 15 year olds, and it makes it a very skeevy watch to this day. But yeah, no, it's still. I think they kept the undertones because they were trying to keep it with being authentic. But yeah, I think that I mean, obviously, you're not supposed to want Paris to win, obviously, because I mean, for other reasons. But yeah, keeping it like that, I think, adds to that. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying though, and I think that it for better or worse, like keeping it that way does skew toward an outcome. But
Yeah, and it's also like, I mean, I again, like, this was around the same time like R. Kelly married Aaliyah. So it's not like it would have been impossible for that to happen in the 90s, but like you think at least
not great.
someone would like give a judgmental look at it or something, but even Nurse, who's supposed to be like Juliet's true mother, is like completely okay with it. Even Juliet,
Yeah, because there's other things at play in the marriage, like money and things. So
yeah, even Juliet is just like, okay.
Speak briefly. Can you like of Paris's love?
I look to like, if looking liking move. But no more deep will I endart mine eye than your consent to give strength to make it fly.
Until she meets
sure.
Romeo.
Yeah, absolutely. By the way, and this is something that I think we could actually have in common about this film. What do you think of Claire Danes' performance as Juliet?
Well, I'm about to get to both her and Leo in a bit.
Okay, so that's perfect then, because I think we may there are some things in there where I think one performance is a little better than the other.
Yes, but we may differ slightly on that. In fact, I'm about to get to
Yeah.
maybe the whole cast in a bit.
Okay. Cool.
Um, but back to the disconnect. It's not just that, it's also, stuff like Romeo and Juliet decide to unite their families together by getting married in 1996. Like, not just date, get married. Like, teen marriage was common in the 1500s. It
Yeah.
was not common in 1996.
I think that the story I think it's the kind of thing where if the film is well done enough and the visuals work enough and the spectacle is there enough that it can let the audience forgive, okay, we're doing 1500s morals and expectations through the straw of 96. And I think the idea is for the forgiveness to sort of lax. I mean, obviously there's moral things that are obviously afoot here because this is Shakespeare, but I don't think he agreed with a lot of that. He was just saying, well, let's just repurpose this and make this into a modern spectacle just to do that. And you know
I don't think he necessarily agrees with it or anything. I don't know. I,
yeah,
I guess it is just sort of like, I guess it is just sort of how the movie seems so invested in its style. It's not really thinking about the content it's adapting as or using as much. Though there is a
yeah,
little detail. There are, to this movie's credit, some couple little details that where he actually kind of expanded on the story that I thought were kind of clever. The first is that in the original play, Balthazar is just some rando who we've never met before, who just shows up. But in the movie, like, you're always seeing Balthazar in the background, like reacting to things happening in the story, and like he's kind of like Romeo's silent confidant. And I thought that was kind of
yeah.
a nice touch on Boz's
Yeah.
part.
Yeah, he was
Um,
just trying to make everything work given what he had. And I think, he was going for visuals over, narrative stuff. So,
yeah, and Miriam Margolyes'
mm,
nurse, I have some conflicting thoughts
okay.
about her performance overall, which I'll get to, but I do kind of like that in the play, uh, the nurse is supposed to be like this sort of true mother figure to
Absolutely.
Juliet, but like she's a bit more sort of like just happy all the time, or that's
Yeah,
kind
and
of
this
how
had
it
some
kind of
nuance to it.
reads, or most of the time. And I do think at the very least, um, while there's a big problem I'll get to with Margoyles's performance, what I did like about her performance was that she at least tried to play the nurse more as someone who is more sort of worried about Juliet's safety, who is
Yeah,
someone who is more into like just making sure that she was good, who was more sort of like a motherly hen, so to speak.
yeah, no, I like that.
Now, I guess I'll have to say what I am a little bothered by with Margoyles's performance. Did they need to? I don't know if this was Margoyles's idea. I don't know if this was Boz's idea. Did we need the thick, stereotypical Latina accent? It's she sounds like
Yeah,
she's
no.
white, first of all.
Yeah, that's the thing. I don't know what he was doing there.
Yeah, it kind of like there's like she's at least trying to make Nurse a more complex, three-dimensional character than what is necessarily on the page, but then it's just ruined with that accent that sounds like Consuela from Family Guy.
Go, girl. Seek happy nights to happy days.
No, 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 no.
Yeah, I think he's trying to say, well, in 1996, this would be a Latina character, but then get like, cast to scale, like get like, I don't know, Mercedes Rule or somebody like that. I don't know,
Or the
you
lady who
know.
played the woman who killed Selena in Selena.
Oh yeah, yeah. I don't know the actress's name because
Yeah,
I haven't seen that movie since high school. But yeah,
she was also in Real Women Have Curves.
okay. So yeah, so get somebody like that. Get somebody like who can do that. Um, but yeah, no, I mean, even that's the thing. You have to be like, okay, despite that, despite the obvious criticism, Margolis does well, and great actor, obviously. But yeah, no, it's just like sometimes the things that Boz is asking these actors to do is like, really, that's a choice. That is a choice.
Yeah, actually, that kind of goes on to a very questionable element that you kind of have to watch this movie and go, oh, 90s, which is that uh, I have conflicting uh, thoughts on Perrin and Leguizamo's casting because I think they're great at embodying these larger than life characters in Mercutio and Tybalt. Like, I'm not sure they understand literally every word they're saying, but they kind of don't need
You don't
to
need to.
because these are the two most like cartoonish, over the top characters in the whole ensemble.
Peace. Peace. I hate the word. As I hate hell, all Montagues. And thee.
Sometimes she driveth o'er a soldier's neck, and then dreams he of cutting foreign throats, and being thus frighted, swears a prayer or two and sleeps again.
On the other hand, though, you're casting the sole major black man in the whole movie as the sassy best friend who dies first, and you're casting the sole Latino guy as the violent, aggressive character who wants to kill all Montagues.
Right. But I think these two actors give unbelievable
Well,
performances as these two characters.
Oh
And I
yeah,
think that
definitely.
you can play the game of like, oh, you can't you can do the black actor dies first, or you can play that game all you want, but I honestly would say that Harold Perrineau is the single best Mercutio to ever grace the screened in an adaptation of Romeo and Juliet. I think what he gives to the character, because obviously, in the play, it's sort of a bawdier, sort of a over the top kind of, more of a one note kind of character. Whereas Harold Perrineau, I think, gives so much more emotion, so much more
Oh,
complexity. Like, there's so much going on with this character, and so that when this character gets to the ultimate fate the character is going towards, it hits that much more. That is the sign of a great performer embodying a character that may not have as many bolts as you may think.
oh yeah, definitely. Like I said, well, there's some unfortunate like 90s racially coded casting there. Like the acting, their performances are great
Oh
in
yeah,
and of
absolutely.
themselves. And I did kind of notice this time around, like Leguizamo doesn't almost seems like he's trying to play Tybalt as not always assured of himself. Like
Yeah, I
there's
like that.
some there's sometimes you kind of see him like give like almost nervous, awkward glances, which I thought again was sort of a nice touch on his part. For someone who is literally so over the top, he wears a costume with devil horns on it.
But I like that stylization. Like that's so cool. I mean, you know what Tybalt is being set up for, but it's such a cool characterization. And Leguizamo obviously brings it, like as he was prone to in this era,
Oh yeah.
except for like the past and shit.
Yeah,
But
although I will say, and I guess it's because, we're talking about 1500s morality being brought into the 90s. I am sort of thinking when Mercutio dies, like, instead of monologuing, you could be going to a hospital. That looks like a bad scratch, but
not in over dramatic Baz Luhrmann world. You got a monologue. You got to cry to the heavens.
you could
Go with
have
the flow.
you could have lived up. That scratch is at least looks like if you just went to the hospital in enough time, you could have lived, dude.
That's not what it says in the script.
Yeah, but I don't know, but while we're on the subject of Mark
Yeah,
of the actors who do acquit
yeah.
themselves well, some minor issues aside, again, Postle, how do you spell his name? How do you
Pete
say his last name?
Postlethwaite.
Postlethwaite.
Pete
Yes, he's a good,
Postlethwaite. I
yeah,
literally was just watching Usual Suspects the other day, and I'm like, oh, there's Pete Postlethwaite.
yeah, yeah. Again, he's a pretty good Friar Lawrence. He really does
Yeah.
sort of understand, what he's saying well.
Thou hast the strength of will to slay thyself, then it is likely thou wilt undertake a thing like death, to chide away this shame. And if thou durst, I'll give thee remedy.
And again, Paul Sorvino's fine.
He's Paul Sorvino. He does this thing.
Yeah. I think it is when it comes to the acting, some of the more side characters, and unfortunately, the two titular leads themselves that don't
Okay.
acquit themselves as well. Yeah, look, I will say on a side, the guy who plays the prince, he's fine. He's perfectly serviceable as angry chief guy, and like he doesn't sound too much like he's struggling with the Shakespearean language.
That heaven finds means to kill your joys with love. And I, for winking at your discords, too, have lost a brace of kinsmen. All are punished. All are punished!
I'm gonna sound like
They got good actors for a lot of these, but
yeah,
again, they needed names above the title.
yeah.
Like they needed people who were hip and with the kids.
And I don't know if Bondi Curtis Hall is hipping with the
No,
kid.
I mean for the leads. I'm trying to.
Yeah,
Rodney
I
Curtis
know.
Hall wasn't he in Daredevil? Yeah, I think he was. All right, sorry. No, I'm getting lost in my own head. Yeah. All right.
Yeah. No, you're fine. I will say, watching the Chief, like I am wondering, like, this guy reminds me of Keith David. I wonder why I wonder if he auditioned for this.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, maybe he's next on the list.
just sorry, Von D. Curtis Hall. That's an aside, though.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about the real
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, two leads. Although, again, I will say I mentioned Beavis and Butthead uh, with from earlier, and I will also, before I get to the two leads, on a side note, yeah, those are two that really didn't work for me because they keep yelling all their lines, and this is one of them is Jamie Kennedy, who is very
Oh,
hit and miss.
oh, okay. I think I've only liked him in one thing, and that's Bowfinger.
Oh, well, I liked him in Bowfinger and Scream.
Oh, right. That's one of my blind spots. Honestly, I haven't seen any of the Scream movies, but I need to. Like, that's
Yes.
apparently really important. People are like, "Dude, what are you doing?"
Yeah,
So
actually,
one of these days I'll get to him.
yeah, it's funny because this literally came out the same year as
As Scream.
Scream.
Yeah, that's
Um,
pretty cool.
yeah, so he plays one character that annoyed the hell out of me and then one character I loved in the same year.
Great. Yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. He's like Jamie Kennedy is like when he's not doing his shtick, uh, like with Bowfinger and
oh yeah.
Scream to a lesser extent. He's not as annoying. Like he was also in I also kind of liked him in Boiler Room and
I haven't seen that.
oh, well, have you seen the specials, which is basically
Is
James
that the James Gunn superhero movie?
the James Gunn superhero movie before he actually had the money to
Yeah.
make
I
superhero
haven't
movies?
seen that, but it's been in the back of my head. It's like, how does that work? Like,
Yeah, it's kind of interesting more as sort of like you can see where it's more sort of interesting as a cultural artifact and just seeing
yeah.
this style forming than like it is as an entire movie. But
Right.
I did kind of like Jamie Kennedy there as like Blue Rocket. That's pretty much what he is in the
Huh?
movie. Blue, imagine someone with Mystique's look and Rocket's personality, and you
Great.
have Jamie Kennedy's character in that movie.
Amazing.
Uh,
I'm sold. I'm adding it to the queue.
okay, but you know what? We're talking about minor
Yeah,
act.
you seem to be avoiding talking about Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes. You're like, we're going to talk about it, but before we do, let's talk about this guy on the left. But before we do, let's talk about Michael Rappaport's bad clone as Benvolio. Like, like
Oh, you know what? Michael Rappaport's bad clone. I was thinking he looked like Harold from Hey Arnold as a
a little
teenager.
bit, a little bit.
He actually laughs like Harold from Hey Arnold at one point.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
oh yeah, no, let's talk about whether or not M. Emmett Walsh is a good Shakespearean actor in his
Who
three
cares? He's
lines of
Emmett
dialogue.
Walsh. It's good to see him.
No,
I've seen Blood Simple. I love when he shows up.
let's talk about the little gospel singing kids.
You really don't want to talk about Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes, do you?
Oh yeah, oh yeah. I find it a little questionable that Friar Lawrence is introduced talking to them while he's shirtless.
A
That
gay guy directed this. What do you want me to say?
okay, no, let's talk about
Yeah.
the actual
Yes.
leads. All right.
Okay.
So DiCaprio and Danes are both great, fantastic actors. If you've ever seen Fleischman is in Trouble, I don't know if Claire Danes was won an Emmy for that or was nominated, but she
She
should.
Who is? You're a camp kid because your parents send you to camp. All his friends started last year.
No, he doesn't have any friends.
It's because he doesn't go to camp. If he doesn't go now, he'd be too freaked out to go later.
won an Emmy for the thing that I wish she didn't win the Emmy for, which was playing Temple Grandin in the neurotypical approved Temple Grandin story.
All right.
Sorry.
Yeah.
That's one of my other pet subjects. There's another
Okay.
podcast for that. I'll keep that in the corner.
Yeah. But here, because they're kind of working with a director who's so committed to his style more than the substance of the play, I feel like they're a bit lost at times. I think
Yeah.
DiCaprio comes off a lot of times like he's just saying the words, but doesn't really have a lot of meaning behind them.
Was that with Rosaline?
Rosaline? My ghostly father, no. I have forgot that name, and that name's woe.
Well, that's my good son. But where then hast thou been?
I've been feasting with mine enemy, whereon a sudden one hath wounded me. That's by me wounded. Both are remedies within thy help and holy physic lie.
I think he's better towards the end when the movie gets more intense.
I defy you, stars!
Yeah.
Because, he's working with a director who's really invested in like intense big emotions. So I guess it makes sense. But I think Danes acquits herself a little bit better. I think she's at least more expressive. And there's some good, at least physical acting on her part. But but sometimes, again, when she doesn't have to act out big emotions like screaming and pointing a gun at someone's head, or, trying or pretending to kill herself, a lot of the times it does kind of sound like she's almost lost.
Madam, I am here. What is your will?
Like she's not
I'm
quite
with you.
sure what she's saying. I, again, they're great actors, but I don't think they quite understand what they're talking about, and it kind of shows in their performances. And I'll admit, some of it may just be that they were very young at the time.
Yes.
Um, but even then, it is sort of like they're young. They're not really, they're not really, being directed by a guy who is really interested in like this, in the substance of the story. And you can even kind of tell this, like, even with moments that should work, like when they're first meeting up and they're seeing each other through
Through
through the
the
fishbowl.
fish. Yeah.
Like Danes is at least trying to look all lovey-dovey, like, oh my God, it's this,
Yeah.
oh my God, look at this handsome dreamboat. And
DiCaprio's kind of brute forcing it.
I've seen some people say they had good chemistry, and I'm like, did we watch this? I mean, you're entitled to your opinion, but did we watch the same movie?
I know thou wilt say aye, and I will take thy word. Yet if thou swearest, thou mayst prove false. O gentle Romeo, if thou dost love, pronounce it faithfully.
Lady, by yonder blessed moon I vow that tips with silver all these fruit trees.
The thing is that I'm with you for the most part. I'm with you on Claire Danes. There's a lot of this that I think that she was not up to at the time. Um, I'm a little bit nicer to Leo than I think you are. I think there are some parts of this that he actually does nail. I think maybe the yelling Tilly's horse, that's something that like I have an issue with just in general with him. But yeah, I think a lot of it does chalk up the fact that they're in their early 20s and they don't really know how to take only some of what a director tells. Like obviously, DiCaprio now is a good enough actor that when he works with somebody like Adam McKay or Alejandro Inarritu, he can base a performance off of what he knows he needs to bring to it, and also what Inarritu or McKay or insert director here is saying. He knows how to weigh what he wants versus what the director or the production wants. And I think that this was a point in both their careers, Danes and DiCaprio, where I don't think they were as good at weighing that. And I think that some aspects of their performance do owe themselves more to what Luhrmann wants rather than what they think they really should have been doing. And I think that does hold this film back at points. I will agree with you on that.
Yeah, I will say I did read that they hated each other, and I guess
Yeah,
I'll give it credit that that doesn't show.
not
Um,
really.
yeah, again, it just seems more like I'd say it's like kind of like watching a drama club performance almost.
Okay.
You
I
know?
don't entirely agree, but you're valid for saying that.
Yeah. Well, I just mean like, and I say this as someone who was in the drama club.
Oh yeah, we've all been there. We've all done our time.
I hope
18 years of it mask. No, sorry.
Yeah, I hope anyone who I did the drama club with is not listening to this, but maybe drama club is the wrong word then.
Theater kids. They do have insane theater kid energy in
Yes.
this.
Yeah. But or maybe the best is like sometimes it feels like it's a theater kid versus a kid who's just kind of doing it uh just for fun or to hang out with their friends or whatever. That's
Yeah.
kind of the dynamic I get with these two.
Okay.
Um, or at least
I can
that's how
see
it
that.
shows off on screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't know, the thing is, while yeah, Leguizamo and Perrin-Roy and Postlethwaite and even Margoyle's accent aside are great, this movie isn't called Tybalt Mercutio Friar
Yeah.
Lawrence plus Nurse, is it?
Yeah, it's about these two leads, and it comes down to them, and you need like, yeah, I'm with you to a point. I mean, I think that there's more good, at least in DiCaprio, that I think you're giving off, but like, yeah, I think that it does live and die with them, and that's one of the things I wish was a little better is at their performances. But I think just the rest of it, I think, fits what I want from a movie enough to distract from that.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess and also the other thing is like, sometimes even when Lerman does sort of understand what's happening, like there are times where it kind of feels like he's almost kind of like they're over explaining to the audience. Like at one point, like when Romeo and Benvo and Harold from Hey Arnold, I'll just call him that from now on, are
Mm.
talking about Rosaline. I praised earlier how they made Balthazar a more silent confidant. But like they do have Balthazar like writing Rosaline's name on the blackboard,
In sadness, cousin, I do love a woman.
I aim so near when I supposed you love.
and I felt like that wasn't really a choice that was needed.
I have no strong feelings about that choice. A lot of these choices, I'm like, okay, I see why you're doing that. I tended not to really think too hard about a lot of what Lerman was doing or how it was contrasted, and that's the thing. You gotta like if you're stopping and you're thinking like, what does this mean with from the original or how does this just like it's about the spectacle. It's about how cool it looks. It's about how it feels. I mean, it's not the smartest Romeo and Juliet adaptation. I mean, but it is smarter than Romeo and Juliet, believe me.
I've never seen that, but another example is
Don't.
like at the beginning, like they repeat, like they have the newscaster, saying the
Yeah,
first lines of the
I like
monologue.
that.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily a bad choice, but then after she says it, then the narrator says literally what she just said again.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life.
Two households, both alike in dignity, in fair Verona, where we lay our scene. From ancient grudge break to new mutiny, where civil blood makes civil hands unclean. From forth the fatal loins of these two foes, a pair of star-crossed lovers take their life.
And it's like, but we just heard that.
I think it's just it's both. I think he just wanted it both diegetically in scene and then non-diegetically to us. It's from a stylistic standpoint, I sort of get it, but I can see how it can come off as excessive in a sense.
Yeah, and I don't know. I will say that while again, Luhrmann is very style over substance. I won't argue that. I guess while his other movies, from what I've seen, they do not have the deepest plots at all. It feels like more like the style, at least, kind of serves the story to an extent, rather than even if the story itself is nothing special. Like with Moulin Rouge, like I get sort of what he's going with all these weird, fantastical choices. It's like serving that the Moulin Rouge is this big, grand place that is almost sort of like a modern fairyland, almost like the Wonderland of France, for
Yeah,
example.
yeah.
It's like, again, Moulin Rouge has a fairly typical story if you really stop and think about it.
It's a love story. You've seen
Yes.
a million of those.
Yeah,
It's
but
just how he tells it is what makes it truly great, in my
yeah,
opinion.
but again, it's like with like every directorial choice, I can at least kind of see like how it sort of ties back into the plot to some extent, like even with like I don't know, maybe some of the maybe during some of the songs, it feels more like he's just adding lyrics. Sometimes the song, like the lyrics, when he tries, the lyrics don't always connect to what's happening.
The hills, the hills, the hills, the hills, the hills, chanting the hills are there. Frank is living in my sound of
With the other like style choices, I can at least see how it's sort of serving the story, even if it
Right.
is first and foremost about the style, if that
Yeah.
makes sense.
No, I think I get what you're saying.
Yeah, well, I just feel like there's some stylistic choices that do serve the story, and then some that do kind of disconnect from the story, in
Okay.
my opinion, and that's just why I
Yeah.
can't really get into it.
And that's fair. I mean, look, I honestly, I just enough of this movie is like what I'm looking for, that even the stuff that doesn't work, and there are things that I will admit, straight face, do not work about this movie. Like, I've talked about several of them here, and there's even more that I don't think we're even going to get to. But at the same time, it works enough as a movie, as a big cinematic experience, as a amazing sign of 1996 in film, in the cultural zeitgeist, in the real world, that I think if I don't think about those things that are obviously sticking out, jutting out at the screen, then I'm like, okay, this is a really cool ride. I like living in this world, and it's a fun way of telling a story. And it honestly, it sinks the emotional beats more than a lot of adaptations of Romeo and Juliet, in my opinion. So that's where I'm
Yeah, I will say there were some neat bits of world building, like them like literally having like guards and having to like put
at.
their weapons and guns
Yeah.
almost like they're treating it like weapons and guns are like jackets in this universe or
In this
backpacks.
world, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, that I'll admit I thought was kind of a cute touch.
There's some fun taste. Yeah.
But no, but thanks again, Jordan, for coming
Of
onto the
course.
show.
Of course.
And and now next time I will actually before we actually finish, I do almost wonder what YouTube influencers are like in this world.
If YouTube influencers had to talk in iambic pentameter, I don't know if they would get as many likes, follows, and subscribes. If I had to do a video essay only in iambic pentameter, I wouldn't like, or if my was only in iambic pentameter in Old English, like if I had to use Old English talking about the Looney Tunes, that wouldn't work. That would get old for like after, well, for if I did it like 5 shows. But you know.
Dost thou hear what Rachel Zegler say? For how doth can she say that snowed white be but abroad only into love? Ah, Dost, Zegler, and oh, do not get me started on that Dinklage. Oh, what a traitor to his community. Ah,
Yes, the famed Shakespearean Old English phrase, do not get me started. A lot of Shakespearean comedians started with that one.
oh. Dost thou like and subscribe? If thou dost not like and subscribe, thou dost shall have banishment come to thou house. Okay, but next time we'll cover I Saw the TV Glow, but we'll do it a bit differently because I actually did not know that it was a trans allegory going in, so I am going to cover it with Jesse Gender.
That'll be an interesting conversation. I'll be watching that one for sure.